Welcome back to Up North at 4, and joining me now, a very special guest. It's Hans Obma. He's born, raised here in Wisconsin. He's an actor, a writer, and you've worked on some pretty major projects. Like, for example, I know Better Call Saul, WandaVision, Grace and Frankie. Hans, you're a big deal. You're maybe one of the biggest guests we've had on this
You,
show.
sir, are a big deal.
I appreciate it. But hey, I got to ask you though, because I know people are wondering, acting, right? That's a out there career choice, but I want to ask, how'd you get involved? Where'd you get started? What eventually led to you saying, I'm taking the leap. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
So, excellent question. When I got out of college, I went to the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I knew before too long that what I really wanted to do was to be an actor. And as I talked with my parents about it, they were both like, well, at least my dad was, you will not regret going. So I decided to go. And so I thought, well, I'll go see what happens in a year. I tell you what, Nate, nothing happened in a year. Nothing happened in 2 years. But at about the 5-year mark, I received this advice that, well, what if you specialize in one thing and become known for that thing? Mm-hmm. And that proved to be the advice that changed everything for me, where all of the work that I've booked since then has been playing a person from another country, or playing a villain, or playing a crazy person, usually some combination of those things.
I was going to say, I feel like those three can kind of tie together quite nicely, right?
Well, it's true. And well, for me, like the accents and languages is the through line. But then in terms of kind of how my casting is, for some reason, my personality and my appearance tend towards villains and crazy people. The accents with that sort of specializing in those kinds of roles.
So I'm curious, though, was that like something you grew up like, learning different languages, getting that, different culture, that aspect, working on your accents, or was that later once you kind of took that step into your career?
So in my own case, the accents and languages was a pretty organic thing. So my grandmother, while she lived in La Crosse, was from the United Kingdom, from Wales. And so there were different kind of British accents that worked their way into how I did things. Always enjoyed that. Part two, I had this lovely Spanish teacher in high school who said that she saw in me a certain gift for languages. And that led to, by the time I graduated from high school, I was something like a fluent Spanish speaker, which is different from a lot of people's experiences. And then at UW-Madison, I also studied a lot of French and a bit of German. And when it came to the idea of, how could I play foreign characters, developing those languages and adding some new ones were obvious next choices, which dovetailed well with my own particular gift. There are plenty of things I'm not good at. I am, however, a very persistent person, and that is how a person gets good at accents and languages.
So I'm sure that's a challenge, right? To kind of just not only have to learn these languages, perfect them, do it well, and then you also mentioned too, a lot of your characters that you play, you're the villain, you're the bad guy, right? And talking to you, I'm like, you seem like this great, nice guy. So how do you get into the mindset of like, I want to be the guy that people watching at home, they have to hate me, right? Yeah. Like you have to think of that, don't you, a little bit?
So absolutely. And I would say the way into playing villains is, first of all, to have in mind that the character's choices are exactly the right choices, that there's nothing wrong with this, that this is the right way. This is the way that things should go. And potentially having some sort of understanding in my mind about what happened in the past that led to this being this character's viewpoint. Finally, a big thing for me was several years ago, the way I started playing villains was I had this acting teacher who said, he saw my face and he said, you got to play bad guys. And so we took 6 months and just played bad guy after bad guy after bad guy. Like I would videotape myself doing a monologue of the guy from Inglourious Bastards, or a Bond villain, or Moriarty from Sherlock. And accordingly, I just put muscle onto the bones of playing villains. And now they're the easiest roles for me to play.
You're more than just an actor, right? You've been doing some writing as well. And when did that start for you? Was that sort of just as you kind of evolved in your career as an actor, you picked up some writing, or had you been doing that before and that just sort of carried over?
Well, funnily enough, I did study journalism at the University of Wisconsin. So I did develop a craftsmanship with words. And then over the years in LA, when there were kind of slow times, a question became, how can I apply what I know to be my own skill at diligence to doing something? And writing was an ideal thing. So I started setting myself times every day. I'd be up to write for 90 minutes in front of my computer, no matter anything happened or not. And so I wrote in the space of a couple of months, feature length screenplay, and I think like 10 short films. I did that again. I think I've written a total of, 3 feature length screenplays. Wow. Then though, when lockdown hit, I had an idea based on practicing lots of languages, practicing lots of accents, and thinking, what would be the ideal series I'd like to send out into the world? And then I came up with this idea for A Question of Service. And that has been a wave that I've been riding ever since. So writing something, assembling a team, creating it, then starting to submit to film festivals. We can get into any. And then we began winning film festivals. And then it became, well, now I have a representative for my writing through A Question of Service, and then writing the hour-long script for what the pilot would be, pitching it, looking for new opportunities. It's been a ride in that way. And that has perpetuated itself, where in the past, it all relied upon my own diligence.
Yeah. So A Question of Service. I'm so glad you brought that up, because you were just in France, the Cannes Film Festival, which is a huge, huge deal to have your work presented at a film festival of that scale. But tell me a little bit, A Question of Service, what is this all about?
So A Question of Service is the story of Joseph Gard, who I will not specify specifically, but he's got significant Wisconsin roots, and he relies, funnily enough, on his ability to accents and languages to be very useful to some of the agents at MI6.
Okay, a little spy thriller? Is that kind of the vibe I'm getting?
Spy thriller is absolutely correct. It's a highly emotional spy thriller. Yeah.
And so this is a film that you wrote, you acted in, and obviously had a huge hand in kind of producing here. And so far, it sounds like the reviews have been fantastic.
So it has exceeded everyone's expectations, potentially aside from my own, because I was hopeful that this could be quite a big deal. Because my own suspicion is that when a person becomes willing to reveal significant portions of what is in themselves, and when a person chooses to rely on strengths as much as possible and just kind of forgets about the things they're not good at, I think that's an exciting recipe. It came from a lot of advice from different mentors over the years about how to progress as an actor. And this was me applying all of those lessons. Now, I couldn't have predicted that we would win some of the festivals that we would win. And Cannes was very exciting, and was, besides being gratifying to share the film with people, it was also an opportunity for me to simply grow as a professional, because at Cannes, I had the opportunity to plant my feet, reach out my hand, and talk with who knows who's going to be there. As people have observed, Martin Scorsese was there. Harrison Ford was there. The biggest directors in the world are there doing things. And I'm not saying that I was hobnobbing at all times with Martin Scorsese, but I was there presenting myself as a professional among the brightest and sharpest professionals in the world. And that puts meat onto your bones as an actor.
Well, perfect. I appreciate you, and best of luck with the projects you have coming up and everything that comes your way, because you seem like the type of guy who is hardworking, very talented, and I'm sure at some point we'll be seeing you, seeing you in the big time, if you haven't made it already. But
well, thank you, Nate. I'm going after it. And if I may, shout out to some of my friends around Rhinelander. I've got Markovsky friends up there. I've got Ernst friends, and one of my best friends, Aaron Farb, is from that area as well.
Perfect. Well, Hans, I'll make sure this gets to them. All right. So if you're watching, reach out to your guy, Hans. All right. Hey, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. It's been so much fun just learning about you and your process. We're going to be back, though, on Up North at 4.